these days that a lot of Christian people and a lot of churches get concerned about is how we're being perceived in society. There's a feeling that it's probably true, probably always been true, as we'll see in just a second, but it's probably true that more and more society, at least in Western culture and American culture, isn't like super fans of church and churchy stuff, and that can be pretty disturbing to Christian people. Because, man, we got all these standards that we hold to, we got all these things that we do, and we're not accepted in the eyes of the world. People don't appreciate us. And maybe that's because there's been other times in American history and in Western culture history and in world history that's a little more recent where there was more acceptance and more approval of God's things and of the Bible and of Christian morals and ethics, and people were held up in society or culture or politics as, oh, like it's great, they're a Christian, blah, blah, blah. But actually throughout most of human history and most of the world, this has never been the case. Actually, look at Revelation chapter 2. Revelation chapter 2, there's a couple of churches, one in Revelation 2 and one in Revelation 3, that they were rejects socially. Look at what it says in Revelation chapter 2. If you start in, verse 9. It says, I know your tribulation and your poverty. Now, it may have been that everybody in this town in Smyrna was poor, but that's pretty unlikely. There are other passages in scriptures, you can look at Hebrews chapter 10 and other places, that make it pretty clear that Christians dealt with poverty partly because of their faith. They faced social rejection, and it was harder to get jobs, or their family didn't accept them or embrace them or support them. And so there are all kinds of financial consequences of their faith. Anyway, keep going in Revelation 2 and verse 9. I know your tribulation and your poverty, but actually you're rich. And the blasphemy or the slander by those who say they are Jews, in other words, God's people, and are not, but a synagogue of Satan. Verse 10, he says, do not fear what you are about to suffer. It's funny, he's like, I know you guys are going through a lot. Jesus says, I know you guys are going through a lot, but actually you're going to go through some more stuff. You're going to go through some more bad stuff. Matter of fact, the devil is about to cast some of you into prison. So it's not just poverty, it's not just suffering, it's not just slander. You're actually going to be cast into prison. And then he says something really sobering. He says, at the end of verse 10, be faithful until death. Do you hear that? These people were being viewed in society so negatively, or being treated such that they had to deal with poverty, rejection, social slander. They had to deal with all kinds of suffering, even to the point, for some of them at least, of death. There's another church that had a similar circumstance that may not have been as tangibly difficult, right? You read Revelation 2, the church about Smyrna in verses 7 and following, and it's very tangible, the difficulties they were going through. You're like, man, I can't imagine being killed for my faith, losing my job because of my faith, having people badmouth me and all that kind of stuff. But look over at chapter 3. There's another church, the church at Philadelphia. Revelation chapter 3, beginning in verse 7, Jesus says, he's addressing them, introducing himself, he who is holy, who is true, who has the key of David. In other words, the keys to the kingdom. David was a symbol for the king. And so Jesus is saying, I have the keys to the kingdom. Who opens and no one will shut, and who shuts and no one opens. In other words, since I have the key, if I open the door, nobody can lock it. If I lock it, nobody can open it. I'm the one that controls entrance into the kingdom. He's saying, okay, why are you emphasizing that so much, Jesus? Well, listen to what he says. I know your deeds. This is Revelation 3, verse 8. I know your deeds. Behold, I've put before you an open door which no one can shut, because you have a little power and have kept my word and have not denied my name. So just a second ago, Jesus was saying, I get to open the door of the kingdom. I can close it. I control access. And now he says, I have given you access. I've allowed you in. Which is great, especially when you read the following verse. Behold, I will cause those of the synagogue of Satan who say that they are Jews and are not, but lie. I will make them come and bow at your feet. Do you hear what's going on here? It wasn't just people of the world who were rejecting the Christians and the churches at this time. It was even people who claimed to be God's people, religious people, good people. They were even saying, you guys are rejects. Y'all are not the real people of God. You're not the ones who God approves of. See, you're going to face this if you're a Christian. Your church as a group may face this, and you are going to face this. If you live faithfully to God, you're going to face tangible consequences. People are going to say bad things about you, or you may lose out on job opportunities, or you may, in some circumstances, and actually, there are people watching this video around the world who are in circumstances where they might lose their life because of their faith in Jesus Christ. But it may not always be worldly, obviously evil, wicked opposition. It can even be from people who claim to be the people of God, who say, you know what, you don't belong here. You're not a part of God's people. The doctrines you espouse, those aren't real, and God doesn't approve of you. It's tough being a reject. Some of you know what that feels like in your life. You've been rejected for various reasons. Maybe by someone who you loved, maybe by a family member, maybe by a parent or by a child. Maybe you were rejected at school because you looked funny or you talked funny. Maybe you've been rejected at your job because you weren't as rich or weren't as smart as everybody else. I don't know how you've been a reject in your life, but you know how that feels. We've got to get comfortable with being rejects in the eyes of the world because of our relationship to God. So that's not a very encouraging video. So here's the finish. The beautiful thing about what Jesus says here is listen, no matter how much you're rejected in the eyes of the world, I accept you. I embrace you. I love you. I know you. And whatever security or stability you might try to get from other people accepting you, it's nothing compared to what I've got for you. In Revelation 2 and verse 10, he said, be faithful unto death, and I will give you a crown of life. I'll crown you with life. You'll be somebody because you'll be alive in me. And then in Revelation chapter 3 and verse 12, he says to these people who are trying to be held out, but he says, no, I've given you access. And whenever you come in, verse 12 of Revelation 3 says, he who overcomes, I will make him a pillar, immovable, in the temple of my God. Where God lives, you'll be part of that stable structure where God lives. And he will not go out from it anymore. And I will write on that person the name of my God. God will be tattooed on your face and on your heart and on your hands. He'll be endemic to who you are as a person. You'll belong to God. And you'll belong with God, because I'll write the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from my God. And Jesus promises, I'll give them my new name. If you live a faithful life, you will be rejected by people. Don't be surprised by that. Jesus always said that was the way it was going to be. But even if you're rejected by everyone, you won't be rejected by the only one who matters, Jesus, who loved you and died for you to make you his own.